Hi, I'm Kevin McCormick. Welcome to this episode of Lake Orion Sports Update. We've got all the latest news in Lake Orion sports here for you, including hockey, basketball, and wrestling, all coming up right now. On Tuesday, January 5th, the girls basketball team traveled to Avondale High School for a conference game. The Lady Dragons outscored the Yellow Jackets 15-7 in the first quarter, 13-8 in the second, 12-10 in the third, and 15-4 in the fourth quarter. The final score was 55-29 as the Dragons cruised their way to victory. Freshman Maddie Novak was the lead scorer for Lake Orion with 14 points, followed by Taylor Washler's 10 points and Lauren Thorne's 9. On Thursday, January 7th, the girls hosted a game against Bloomfield High School. Bloomfield jumped to an early lead and held on to it for the entire game. Late in the fourth quarter, Lake Orion made a string of baskets to close the gap. Ultimately, the Dragon girls were unable to overcome Bloomfield and lost by a score of 57-49. Lake Orion's Maddie Novak scored a team-high 22 points. On Tuesday, January 12th, the Lady Dragons traveled to West Bloomfield. The Lakers shot to an early lead over the Dragons. However, at halftime, there was only a 1-point difference between the teams, with Bloomfield remaining in the lead 28-27. In the second half, the Dragons continued to push back for the lead in the third quarter. Unfortunately, Lake Orion faltered in the fourth, and the Lakers finished the game strong, beating the Dragons 55-48. Freshman Maddie Novak once again scored a career-high 23 points to lead the Dragons. On Friday, January 15th, the Lady Dragons traveled to Troy High School. Lake Orion took off running with a 24-9 point lead against the Colts in the first. The two teams each earned 10 points during the second quarter, leaving them at 34-19 at the halftime mark. The Dragons continued their push to victory during the second half of play, earning 15 points to 10 in the third and 12-8 in the fourth. The Dragons took the win with a total of 61-37. Freshman Maddie Novak led the Dragons with 19 points. She was helped out by Evelyn Wishmeyer with 9 and Cameron Coltrane with 8 points. Here are the current OAA white standings. On Friday, January 8th, the boys basketball team hosted the Royal Oak Ravens at the Fieldhouse. The Dragons outscored the Ravens in the first quarter 14-7 and 19-7 in the second. After halftime, Royal Oak found their groove and outscored the Dragons 23-7 in the third quarter and 21-12 in the fourth. The final score was 58-52, Royal Oak with the win. David Gomez of the Dragons led all scorers with 24 points. On Tuesday, January 12th, the Dragons played a home game against the undefeated Rochester Adams Highlanders. Equipped with the county's top scorer, Spencer Littleson, Adams started off strong in the first quarter, putting up 10 points against Lake Orion's 4. The second quarter was closer in score, with Lake Orion taking the lead 9-7. After halftime, the Highlanders dug deep and put up 22 points to the Dragons' 9. Although the Dragons pushed harder in the fourth, they couldn't regain the lead, and Rochester Adams won the game 56-35. The Dragons' losing streak continued during their home game against Rochester High School on Thursday, January 14th. The first quarter scores were 16-13 in favor of the Falcons. Rochester continued to lead the game into the second with a score of 9-8. The Dragons started the second half of play with a leading score of 16-3, but quickly fell in the fourth, with Rochester earning 20 points to Lake Orion's 10. Rochester scored 11 three-point shots during the game. Dragon David Gomez led the Dragons with 17 points and was followed by Noah Harris with 14. Here are the current basketball standings in the OAA. On Friday, January 8th, the Dragon varsity hockey team played an away game against Jackson Lumen Christian. Lake Orion's offense was swift and powerful through the game and scored 11 points against Jackson's defense. The game was fruitful for Drew Casey and Will Thornton, who each earned a hat trick. Thornton pushed even further and ended the night with 4 goals. Lake Orion played another game on the road on Saturday, January 9th against Jackson High School. Sadly, this game would not end in a victory like the previous match, although Lake Orion goalie Jack Barker had a solid game. Jackson scored 3 goals against Lake Orion's 2. The 2 goals for the Dragons were scored by Drew Casey and Andrew Laurent. The Dragons hosted their next game against Detroit Country Day Yellow Jackets on Thursday, January 14th. Unfortunately for Lake Orion, they were unable to defeat the Yellow Jackets, losing 4-2. Darren Newman and Drew Casey scored Lake Orion's 2 points, while Johnny Marshall was in the net, goaltending. Here are the current OAA Red standings. On Thursday, December 17th, the girls' bowling team faced Royal Oak at Collier Lanes. Hannah Mick scored a game-high 246, Lexi Babbitt scored 214, and Trina Glasgow scored 211 to lead the Dragons. The Dragons beat Royal Oak in impressive fashion, shutting them out 30-0. The girls bowled again on Monday, January 4th against Ferndale High School. Gladstone bowled a 244 and a 267, and Mix bowled a 202 and 213 to lead the Dragons. Lake Orion again won the match by an impressive score of 30-0. On Thursday, January 7th, the girls traveled to Waterford to face off against Bloomfield Hills. The girls kept their winning streak intact, running a 29-1 win. Mix and Gladstone led the Dragons for the night. On Monday, January 11th, the girls traveled to Collier Lanes to bowl against North Farmington. The Lady Dragons won by a score of 28-2. Jessica Cannon led the Dragons against North Farmington. Lake Orion girls bowling is undefeated this season with 5 wins so far. On Thursday, January 7th, the boys and girls ski teams raced against Cranbrook. The boys won with a score of 15 points, while Cranbrook scored 21 to take second. Kyle Gesquire, Max Giesbuehler, and Lawson Brophy led the Dragons, placing first, second, and fourth places individually. The girls' team took first with a score of 11 points, and Cranbrook placed second with 28 points. Top performers for the girls are Grace Stetsko, Emily Hewitt, and Lindsay Thielen, who scored first, second, and third places individually. On Wednesday, December 30th, the wrestling team traveled to Milford High School for an end-of-the-year tournament. Lake Orion had 4 wins and 1 loss on the day. Their first matchup was against Henry Ford. The Dragons fought hard but ultimately lost 37-30. They bounced back, though, winning the rest of the tournament. They shut out Milford 78-0, beat Saginaw Swan Valley 43-34, and beat Lakeland 51-21. The Dragons' last duel was against Howe, and it was close. With only 1 match left, Howe had the lead 36-30. The Dragons' only hope was a pin from 119-pounder John Mall to tie the score at 36. He did just that, while his opponent Marco Shin acquired an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. The first tiebreaker criteria to determine a winner is if any unsportsmanlike penalties were called. Because Shin acquired one, the Dragons won on criteria, winning not only the team duel, but the tournament as well. The wrestling team now has 7 wins and 3 losses in dual meet action. On Wednesday, January 6th, the Lake Orion Fieldhouse was a last-minute host for the wrestling meet that was originally scheduled to be at Avondale High School. Lake Orion wrestled Avondale and Troy High Schools. Avondale proved to be too much for the Dragons to overcome, losing by a score of 45-32. The Dragons led a late string of wins by Tyler Modoc, Anthony Orselli, and Denny Matthews, but the gap was too great to overcome. Lake Orion fared better in the second duel of the night against Troy. The Dragons won by a solid score of 52-22 to end the night with 1 win and 1 loss. Lake Orion's head coach Jeff Smart was missing starting wrestlers from the lineup for various reasons. On Saturday, January 9th, the wrestling team traveled to Clinton High School for a weekend tournament. The Dragons wrestling team placed 4th overall and had 6 individual placers. Brendan Thompson placed first, and Josh Benson placed third at 285 pounds. Tyler Modoc placed third at 160 pounds. Anthony Orselli took fourth at 171 pounds. John Mall placed fifth at 119 pounds. Denny Matthews placed fifth at 189 pounds. Chris Cade finished sixth at 152 pounds. And Zach Teague finished sixth at 215 pounds. On Wednesday, January 13th, the wrestling team hosted a dual meet at the Fieldhouse. The Dragons' first opponent was Birmingham Seaholm. The Dragons took an early lead and never looked back. The final score was Lake Orion 55, Seaholm 15. Lake Orion's next opponent was Southfield. Much like their match against Seaholm, the Dragons out-wrestled the Blue Jays, winning by a score of 64-12. Top wrestlers for the Dragons were John Mall and Tyler Modoc, both going undefeated. This dual meet was recorded in its entirety by ONTV. For future viewing times, please visit OrionONTV.org. Check our program schedule. You can also watch the match on demand on our YouTube channel. So thanks for watching today's episode of Lake Orion Sports Update. I'm Kevin McCormick. Tune in next time for the latest news during the winter sports season.